true memoir of the hockey mask killer. Milton Pratt tells all. He's here tonight. The best job I ever had was wearing a hockey mask and scaring kids with a chainsaw. Haunted house gigs are the best, and I'll probably never have another boss who tells me to act crazier and encourages me to stop showering before work and wear the most blood-stained clothing you can find. I'm kind of a legend in the spook house community. It's a thing. Seriously, I have 2 Leatherface awards because there is no one better than me at lunging at people's groins with a chainsaw. None of the little pukes could tell there was no blade on it. When they see the shape of a blade, hear that rumbling motor run, and smell the gasoline exhaust, they know it's real. When it got near their crotch, as I chased them down dark hallways, they lose their minds, especially the guys. Teenage boys can imagine nothing worse than getting their fun factory mangled. Or a hole, or a new hole created in their backside. Run! Now the girls, they would just go ballistic no matter what I did. My favorite was slicing the chainsaw toward their ankles. You might be surprised about how many of them tried to climb up onto their boyfriend's body at that moment. They would wrap their legs around him like a frightened baby orangutan. Making people scream in terror is a skill few people master, and I know that I will be remembered as a true scream artist. Seriously, look me up. My name is Milton Pratt, but most people think of me as the character I was born to play. Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies and the books. Don't forget the books. I've seen all of them. I've read everything about Jason ever written, even the fan fiction. Jason vs. Godzilla was my favorite. Nothing can kill Jason. Nothing. Not even a 300-foot tall lizard. Not even Godzilla. Godzilla cannot take Jason. Ever since Hockey Mask Jason appeared in Friday the 13th Part 3 back in 1982, I dreamed of being a hero like him. He was everything a man should be. Big, scary, invincible. And he had a great theme song. You remember that creepy music? Kick, 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 ma, 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 ma. Kick, 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 ma, 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 ma. It's my all-time favorite. It gave me hope, and I needed it. I was a big, goofy kid with an ugly face and bug eyes that everyone said were about to pop out of my skull. I could barely talk because of a deformed and paralyzed tongue. All the kids teased me. They even threw rocks and hit me with sticks. I hardly beat any of them up. My specialty was breaking bedroom windows of those little punks with a baseball bat at 2 a.m. Then I would leer at them and stand still as a tombstone, wearing my very first hockey mask and carrying a machete. Kick, 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 ma, 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 ma. I couldn't really say anything scary, but I could do that, which is short for kill, kill, kill them. Mommy, mommy, mommy. Jason's mom was ruthless too. Anyway, the mask scared the crap out of those kids who picked on me. It was the real deal, bone white with little holes over the mouth and forehead. I ordered it from Canada and everything. I outgrew my first one. The mask they got me for my haunted house job was the best one I ever had. It came all shiny and clean, a real Detroit Red Wings goalie mask like Jason wore. I made it look just like the one in the movies. I scuffed it up. I got it dirty. I even chopped a hole in the left cheek with a meat cleaver. Getting a meat cleaver was really not easy. You'll understand why later. Now, I'm not bitter about it. And the whole no meat cleaver policy was good at my place of residence. See, I worked for the Haunted Castle. It was the most popular haunted house in a 5-state radius. Mostly teenagers and college students swarmed the place every year, forming huge lines that wrapped around the block. The castle was over 100 years old. And it wasn't just a historical landmark turned into an attraction for a few days in October. It was actually the Utah State Mental Hospital, where real psychiatric patients were kept in lockdown units. I am not kidding, people. People don't believe me now, but the mental patients and the hospital staff, they ran that haunted castle for 26 years. We made over $100,000 a year to keep that hospital running. Until the worst day of my life, back in 1998. It really happened. Google it, people. Everybody wants you to believe that the political correctness police shut the whole operation down because it was offensive to the mental illness community. That's just a cover story disguised in a little truth. And there's nothing else they can do for me now. I will not be silenced. The man I kept quiet for all those years passed away. And those bastards can sue me now if they want. You all need to know about Friday, October 30th, 1998, when a couple of teenagers disappeared inside the castle on Halloween night. I didn't know who they were at the time, but I found out later what perfect little rich brats they were. Jennifer Hatch and Brandon Young. I hate perfect little children. It's just not natural. Everyone needs a scar or a bulging eye. The haunted castle had been packed that night. Don't kill me, Milton. I'm reading good, I swear. Haunted Castle was packed that night. There was the last bunch of a co-ed group of BYU students. They were screaming and yowling in terror as they fled the building. They ran off out of the basement, except for Jennifer and Brandon, who had crept off into a side room for some privacy. All the staff went home. The inpatients working went back to their rooms in the minimum security ward. And I stayed with Eldon to shut everything down. Eldon was my boss and my warden. He looked like Wilford Brimley with that mustache and everything. Plus, he used to bring me elk jerky and sour candies on movie nights. He worked as an orderly in the long-term wing of the hospital. I thought of him as the father I wished I had. Since I was 21 and had my first big psychotic break, I had lived in the mental hospital. I don't want to get into all of it, but 84 was a tough year. My favorite TV show, Fantasy Island, got canceled. And I thought Jason had been killed permanently in Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. Major suckage. I should have known. Jason getting hit in the head with a machete 17 times was not enough to take him out. I wish I would have known they would make 8 more movies after that. 10! There are 10, people. Thank you, Hollywood. Thank you, Hollywood, for keeping the most important slasher film franchise of all time alive for almost 30 years. I smile every time I think of those promiscuous camp counselors getting what they deserved: a sharp blade through the skull, a pitchfork in the chest. Such lovely memories. Oh, about teenagers getting what they deserved. Eldon and I heard the 2 trespassers walking on the metal stairs down to the 2nd floor. As we began our final rounds, they were giggling and whispering. "You hear 'em?" Eldon said. The mask muffled everything that came out of my mouth. "I'll take the back stairs. You go around through the autopsy room and catch 'em. You scare 'em toward me." I raised my rubber machete covered in fake blood. "Milton, don't scare 'em too bad." I raised my hand. "Scouts horror." I couldn't say honor. I marched down the stairs, letting my size 16 steel-toed boots echo in the stairwell. I wanted them to hear me coming. I picked up a few things before I went down to the 2nd floor where I heard them. The castle had 3 levels, and the tour started on top and went down through a maze of scary chambers. My favorites were the torture room, the zombie room, the ghost room, the medieval torture room, the morgue, and the scariest one of them all, the psych ward. trick was to make eye contact and get the whole group looking at one silent actor. You just look at them just like that, and they come towards you. And then all of a sudden, a hidden actor comes out of nowhere, works every time. It's money. Now, I caught up to Brandon and Jennifer in a hallway we called Screech Alley. I stood there under a flickering light bulb. They froze. That's when I lifted the severed head. I threw the prop down the hallway. They shrieked and ran for the stairs. I stomped after them in the dark hallway, lit only by a few red light bulbs and a few pulsing strobes. That's when they almost fooled me. They went behind a curtain and found an employee-only door that took them into the basement. I ended up at the exit where Eldon was waiting. What happened, Milton? Oh no! Eldon found the employee-only door, and we found ourselves in a windowless basement from the original construction back in the 1890s. It was a dead end. The lights didn't work, and Eldon's flashlight ran out of batteries after we caught a glimpse of them. I definitely saw blonde hair. Hey, you kids, come on out, Eldon said, then chuckled. Or I send Jason in here after you. Kick, 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 kick. Milton said in the pitch blackness, just trying to be helpful. Someone squealed in terror. In hindsight, I probably should not have started up my chainsaw at that moment and revved the engine. Run! We went in after him, and the next thing I knew, a bright light flashed in my face. One of those stupid disposable Kodak cameras blinded me. I heard a thump. Eldon gasped in pain. Another flash, and I saw Eldon get hit in the head. He crashed to the floor, blood pouring out of his scalp. I tried to help him, but a metal rod shattered my forearm. I dropped my chainsaw and got hit across the face with what I found out later was a piece of rebar. The hockey mask probably saved my teeth and a lot of extra pain. I remember getting hit a bunch of times on the ground, then kicked in the nuts 3 times. Brandon Young was an all-state baseball player who hit 46 home runs his junior year. The little punk had a full-ride scholarship to BYU. Jennifer Hatch was a black belt in karate and taught her young women's group how to ruin a guy's day in 3 brutal moves. 3. They ran off while Eldon and I bled on the floor. Both of them got caught by the cops when they crashed their car on Center Street in Orem after they lost control while speeding. And they didn't get hurt, don't you worry. But poor Eldon had a bunch of broken bones and spent 3 weeks in the hospital. He had to take a medical retirement. We were both going to press assault charges, but the Hatch and Young families stepped in and offered hush money. They even threatened $1 million lawsuit against the hospital. After all, Brandon and Jennifer were scared for their lives, and the fight or flight response is a powerful force. Lawyers talked. Money changed hands. Eldon needed the cash, and I took the deal. The board of trustees decided I was too big a liability to have on premises anymore. They blamed me for the whole thing. Me and my stupid chainsaw. They shut the haunted castle down for good. Then they decided that I was sane. I got kicked out of the Utah State Mental Hospital. I lost my home. I lost the best job I ever had. Brandon and Jennifer Jennifer got married and went to Hawaii for their honeymoon after they graduated from high school. I was waiting for them. When they got to Maui, they arrived late at night in their bungalow right off Wailea Beach. They sat on the bed kissing, and, well, I didn't wait for them to fully undress. I mean, I'm not a perv or anything. I drew aside the curtain to their outdoor patio. The metal rings scraped on the curtain rod like Freddy Krueger's fingernails on a chalkboard. They looked right at me with their perfect blue eyes as big as saucers, their faces contorted in disbelief, then terror. Timing is everything. So I waited for the fear to sink down into their bones, for their brains to realize what they were seeing was real. And then I turned on the chainsaw I borrowed from the Polynesian gardener named Moki. Run! They both wet themselves and ran out of that bungalow, letting out what we call in the biz legit blood-curdling screams. The cops didn't show up. So after a while, I went inside and took a strawberries and champagne-scented bubble bath with tea candles all around. I ate everything in the minibar. And that night, I watched TV in style. An old episode of Fantasy Island was on. The plane! The plane! Man, I love that show. I looked for Jennifer and Brandon, but they hopped a plane back to the mainland that night. Stalking them during their honeymoon would have been fun, but I passed the time by finding a beautiful beach to soak up the sun. No one ever hung out when I was around, except for Moki. He was bigger than me, not quite as ugly. He gave me a job, and I stayed in Hawaii permanently. I do security when famous people want to hang out on the beach. And in case you're wondering, a 300-pound guy with a hairy back, a Speedo, and a hockey mask, pruning the rose bushes with a chainsaw, keeps the paparazzi away. The creeps that got too close or annoy the guests on a visit, well, they get a visit from me in the middle of the night.
It started haunting me after school at my godmother's gift shop. After I ate not one, but 2 slices of her homemade apple pie, it just kind of hit me. A feeling that something bad was going to happen. Something that would change life as I knew it. So I drove to Walnut Grove Cemetery, hoping to shake the feeling. It seemed to work while I sat cross-legged at Mom's grave, bundled up in my gray pea coat, my extra-long scarf flapping in the winter breeze. But now, as I hunker over the steering wheel in the parking lot and turn the key in the ignition, I've turned the feeling back on, and it's just as strong and ominous as before. Maybe it's just the apple pie, I tell myself. I ate way too much, and it's sitting in my stomach like a lump of concrete. Or maybe it's the way my godmother's voice cracked when she said, "Alexis, promise me you'll be careful," right before I left her shop. Perhaps it's simply because I only got my license this very morning, and I'm not used to taking the Mustang out on my own. I never thought I'd miss Uncle Vince sitting shotgun, barking instructions in between, "This is important, it'll only take a moment," cell phone calls. I close my eyes and fill my head with soothing, happy thoughts. The aroma of coffee in the morning, the smoothness of piano keys under my fingers, the serenity of a snowy night. When I open my eyes again, the late afternoon sun is suddenly shrouded in dark, gray clouds. The first few raindrops thump, thump, thud on the hood. Then other raindrops enthusiastically join in. Where is the stupid window wiper switch? It rarely rains in Cardinal, Utah, especially in the wintertime. However, the dark clouds, the slushy sidewalk, the downpouring of freezing cold rain, it all seems fitting. It is my birthday, after all. Finally, I flip the right switch and the wipers come to life. They swish swashed across the windshield sluggishly at first, and then gaining momentum. It's still hard to see, but I know this stretch of country road inside and out. And I'm not nervous. Well, maybe a little. My cell phone rings. Slipping my fingers into my backpack, I fish it out and glance at the screen. "Hi, Vince," I say. If it were anyone else calling, I would have just let it go to voicemail. But it appears I've already missed a call of my uncle's, and besides, he never talks long. He's probably just wondering when I'll be home. I made him promise not to try and throw me a surprise party like he did last year. A sweet gesture, but I've never been into celebrating my birthday. All I can think about is how my mom died because of me. So this year, I told him all I wanted to do for my birthday was ditch my morning classes, to go to the DMV and get my license, and then have a quiet, casual evening at home. I'm on my way. I dropped by Helene's shop on the way home. "I thought you'd probably go there," Vince said. To his credit, he keeps his tone neutral. My uncle and godmother don't get along. He thinks she puts crazy new age ideas in my head. "You didn't answer your call, so I called over there. Helene said you left an hour ago." I know him well enough to realize he's not calling me a liar, as much as trying to line up all the facts. That's just the way his attorney mind works. "Yeah, I had an errand to run," I say, being deliberately vague. I know it's not normal to spend so much time at the cemetery. And through the years, I've learned to keep my visits on the down low. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm so excited to have my own car and driver's license. The closest bus stop isn't exactly close. But like I said, I'll be home soon. Where'd this rainstorm come from anyway? It was just a little overcast a moment ago. Wait, Alexis, you're not talking to me while you're driving, are you? Not anymore. The instant I hang up, the car slams into something. I pound on the brakes and the Mustang fishtails and skates for a few seconds before coming to a stop. Squeezing the wheel tightly, I try to catch my breath. I peer through the hazy headlight beams, straining to see what I hit. Absently, I twist the key to the off position. The world is silent and still all around me. But my mind screams and every muscle in my body tenses. The moon peeks through the clouds, and abruptly as the rain started, it stops. I still don't see a deer or anything on the side of the road, though. Is my premonition coming true? I open the door and step out, vaguely noting that there's not a dent on the hood as expected. But I feel no relief, because not 2 seconds later, I hear it. A groan. I run to the side of the road, and there he is. My heart pounds so hard, I swear it's trying to explode right through my ribcage. Oh my God, I hit a man. His head jerks, and I sigh in relief. He's alive. Hello, hello, can you hear me, I ask, my voice shaky. Are you okay? Of course he's not okay, I reprimand myself. I think it's safe assumption that his leg doesn't usually bend that way. His handsome face is badly scratched and bruised, yet he watches me with surreal calmness in his eyes. They are dark and beautiful. I have a strange, unsettling feeling. I've seen those eyes before, but I don't know where or when. I'll go. I'll call for help. I have a cell phone in my car. Be right back. Don't move, I say, in case his neck is broken or something. And then I race back to the car. In desperation, I dial 911 and report the accident as coherently as I can. The operator assures me she'll have emergency personnel there, ASAP. Although she says to stay on the phone with her, I shove the phone into my coat pocket. I hurry back to my victim. Sinking to my knees, I take his hand in mine. It's so cold. With my free hand, I uncoil my scarf and gently wrap it around his hands. The ambulance is on its way. Everything is going to be fine. Dark red seeps through his shirt, and for the first time I notice he's wearing scrubs under his black leather jacket. But he looks too young to be a doctor, or even a nurse, or a hygienist. If I had to guess, I'd say he was 17 or 18 tops. I feel terrible. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I force myself to blink, to look away, to hide my tears. Something in his eyes holds me there, though, and I feel as if I'm dangling hopelessly above the flames of hell. Why had I answered my phone? Or why hadn't I pulled over before answering, like Coach Hansen always told us to do in driver's ed? All those horrific slides of wrecks caused by distracted drivers, the ones he forced us to watch, are still fresh in my memory. And now, the image of his boy lying on the ground, broken and bloody, will be etched in my mind forever. I could have beat myself up for days on end, but then he squeezes my hand and his entire body starts convulsing. There's no sign of the ambulance. Not a single car is driven by. What's taking them so long? We need help now. If I don't do something and something fast, this poor boy might not make it. If I don't make the right choice, he might die. I'd have to live the rest of my life as a murderer. My stomach rolls, and that lump of apple pie concrete threatens to come up. I take a deep breath, gathering all my courage, and I give him a smile. Can you tell me your name? Giovanni. I'm not sure what I expected, but his smooth, sexy tone grabs me. Plus, I can't believe how composed his voice sounds, given the fact that he'd just been hit by a car. Okay, Gio, I'm about to tell you something. I dig my fingers into the ground, the cold, crusty snow, mud, and brittle grass jabbing into the tender skin beneath my nails. You're not gonna believe what I'm about to say, but I swear I'm not lying. I clear my throat, forcing myself to keep going. I've never done this before, not without Helene's help. I pray I'm not making a huge mistake. Ask me for help. I can help you. I can heal your wounds, but you have to ask me. Is he grinning, or are the shadows playing tricks on me? I don't need your help. He's still grinning. Of course, he thinks I'm off my rocker. What I need is for you to hop back into your car and drive away and never speak of this little incident to anyone. I cross my arms over my chest, shivering uncontrollably. Please, Gio, you're making no sense. I get that you're in terrible pain. I know you're probably delusional or something, but what I'm asking is so simple and it will work. He can't die, he just can't. Just ask me for help, Gio. Ask me. What I'm asking sounds insane, I know that, but if only he'll trust me. I said, I don't need your help. His gaze dips from my eyes to my neck, and I wonder if he can actually see the throbbing of my carotid artery as my heart pounds out an insane rhythm. Despite the rawness of my desperation, I feel a twinge of unease in the pit of my stomach. Gio raises his chin. Water droplets trickle down his hair and run down the length of his cheekbones, his features at once beautiful and menacing. Go away. I'll go as soon as you ask me for help. It's simple, Gio, really. Repeat after me. Please heal me. Please. My fingers begin to tingle, and the warmth fills my core. Go away. He cringes, nearly overwrought with pain. I can't leave him, but if he refuses to ask me for help, what can I do? The warmth is gone, leaving me feel cold, wet, hopeless. The squeal of sirens punches through the blustery air, and I'm so relieved. My eyes brim with a fresh batch of tears. I jump up and race toward the road, flapping my arms to get their attention. The fire truck comes to a screeching halt, followed shortly by an ambulance. Over here! He's over here! I scream, and people in black pants and jackets rush the scene, only to stop a few feet from where I directed them to go. They spread out to each side, searching. Where is he? Asks one of the firefighters. There's no one here, someone else says with a shrug. I can feel their eyes on me as I run to the spot I left Gio. Sure enough, he's nowhere to be seen. Gio is gone.
Now, I'm what you might call a ghost. I have been since 1928. Thank you very much. Or a poltergeist if you want to get technical about it. But not destructive, oh no sir. I'm I'm building me a rock house right here in East Texas where them witches burnt my great-granddaddy's house. My great-granddaddy's wooden house. This stone house is my tombstone. Ain't nobody alive in it but me. It stands above my grave. This young feller, he come out from New York City to find out my story, and here's part of what I told him. Some highfalutin oil company geologist got to my granddaughter at a fancy party there in town and told her she'd be rich if she talked me into the signing the lease for the mineral rights. She convinced her mama, and even though I ain't heard nothing from neither one of them for the better part of 2 years, they started riding out all the way out to the farm from town every Sunday, near 8 miles. Now, that was a lot further for motor cars. You know, New York City boy like you, who thinks a long walk is down to the corner for the newspaper, an 8-mile buggy ride is a long ways. I ain't saying it wasn't a long way back in the day, but then we didn't know no better. Anyways, when them women got the oil fever, they got to looking at the half of the farm on the other side of the creek where the old growth forest is, and the greed just sunk right into them. All the neighbors are selling their mineral rights, grandfather. Come the drumbeat, week after week. Papa, all the neighbors are selling their timber to be clear cut. Don't fret over trees, Papa. They're just plants. They'll grow back, she'd say. Yeah, maybe someday after we're all dead and gone. Well, dead anyways. Now, I ain't a stupid man. Back in them days, I watched my pennies. I had to, and watched for ways to make more. Another mule would have helped, maybe a hired man now that I was 70 years old and slowed down some, but I watched my neighbors sell their oil rights. The drillers would swoop in, cut roads through the trees, spill drilling mud and chemicals and waste oil all over the ground, kill every good plant, and let weeds come back up instead. Now the owner, he'd get a few $1,000s, maybe build him a house, maybe buy his wife something purty. But sooner or later, he was right back to where he was before, a dirt farmer scratching on ugly, torn up, no good land. Them scars ain't never healed. I owe the land more than that. And then what sold their timber was worse off yet. I don't know if you ever seen clear-cut land, boy, but it don't look like nothing more than an old mangy dog that mean boys has got hold of and shaved. Sorrier than a drowned cat. Now, I will grant you the trees has come back on my neighbor's land, but spindly shadows of their ancestors 90 years ago, harvested and harvested again for pulp every decade or two, all the stumps just left to rot. So walking through the woods ain't walking through the woods no more. It's climbing over one old stump after another. But my old growth trees is still there. And now even the 60 acres I was farming when they killed me has 87-year-old trees on them. I'm right proud of that. Grand old trees that's home to birds and deer and foxes and coyotes. No Texas cougars yet, but good Lord willing, someday we'll see them back again. Anyways, the very next time the girls come out from town, my granddaughter's husband, the banker boy with them. As soon as they settled on the porch of the old frame house that stood right here where I'm building my new stone house now, with lemonade, nice and cold, with real ice straight from my ice house, they started in on me. Papa, we feel that, and Grandfather, it would be in your best interest if... Criminy, the airs they did put on. Papa, Grandfather, I don't know where they got they coming up with that, but it weren't for me or the missus. And that no-count banker boy spouting on about investment opportunities and return on investment, blah, blah, blah. About how I could get electricity and indoor plumbing and be just dandy, modern, and comfortable. Made me right sick at my stomach. I finally stood up and I told him, now, y'all had your fine say, and I do appreciate your opinions, but it's time for you to listen to me, because I'm the one with the say-so. Ain't nobody gonna drill on my land. Ain't nobody gonna cut my timber over my dead body. And I walked out into the trees, and I didn't come back to the house till they was long gone. Now you can bet I've wondered ever since if that's when they decided they was gonna do it, if they had already decided, or if they cooked it up after they left that day. However they done it, it was over my dead body, all right. Turns out my daughter and granddaughter was living way high on the hog in town. They was running up bills my granddaughter's husband couldn't pay, even with his fancy salary from the bank. He took to swindling widows and orphans and churches and anybody else that'd let him. The whole house of cards was just about to crash in around his ears. Listen, he found a way to lay on some cash quick. And getting rid of me was the way they figured to do it. When they come back the next Sunday, they all acted all sugar plum sweet and like nothing never happened the week before, only they brought along a dinner of my favorite fried chicken and lemonade and sweet buttermilk and rhubarb pie. I never will know exactly what bite had what poison in it, because it all tasted right good to me, but 10 minutes after I sat down to eat, my stomach tied up so tight that it doubled me right over. They sat there all cool and calm, just like y'all, cool as cucumbers, and watched me try to stand up. When I started to spew, they even scooched back so they wouldn't get splattered. They scooched back some more when I started to spew blood and keeled off my chair onto the kitchen floor. It took a long time to die, and it hurt real bad. It got harder and harder to breathe, and I fought harder and harder to keep on doing it till all of a sudden, breathing weren't hard no more. Nothing hurt. Nothing. Not even my lumbago. I'm standing right there, right side my own head, staring down at myself, all curled up in a ball. My poor dead face all wound up in a scream like my jaw was gonna tear off. And I felt right sorry for that poor old wore-out thing lying there all wore out and twisted and dead. Well, the granddaughter, she stood up and she started giving orders about cleaning up the mess and hauling me to my bed. Sent her husband to town for the doctor with a story about how my poor old heart finally give out. Me standing there listening like I had no good sense rooted to the floor like I was planted there already. Right after the banker was out the door, my daughter crossed the room for the mop and pail, and doggone if she didn't walk right through me. I meant to get out of the way, honest injun I did, but somehow my mind just weren't right. As if I just naturally expected her to see me and step around me, which of course she didn't. She walked right through me. She walked right through me. Now I didn't feel nothing but a push, like a breeze went by. But she sure did. She let out a squeal and went to blubbing about how somebody liked to pour ice water down her neck, and it being such a hot night and all. Well, the granddaughter, she come over and she grabbed her mama by the elbow like a toddler, and she gave her a tongue lash like she was one to, but how she was just panicky and she better shut up before she had to give her a slap and give her something to cry about, because she better believe she would. Now, this might sound funny to hear, because it sure does sound funny to say, but hearing her talk to her own mama that way kind of tore something loose in me. You'd think getting killed with poison might have done it, but you'd be wrong. Hearing that girl sass her mama was my last straw. Now I never did hold with slapping a child. Though maybe if I hadn't spared the rod so much with my daughter, she wouldn't have got spoiled so bad, and I might have stayed alive a few years more. And I probably wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I never had lifted a hand to my granddaughter in all her born days, but somehow something snapped, and I hauled back and I slapped her face. Hard. Didn't hurt me, but by gum, she sure enough felt it. Her head snapped around and she spun back all wild-eyed, and she backhanded her mama, who was bawling too hard to know what was going on. Probably she thought somehow her mama had managed to smack her one, but no, it was me. So I did it again. And again. And now I was starting to enjoy myself just a little, because I finally spoke up. Ever since you was little, I know you was evil. You was an evil, hateful, spiteful child, and now you've grown into a greedy, money-grabbing monster, and you have killed me. May God damn you to eternal hell. Sure enough, she spun around like a top, looking around the room, and looked down at my body, looking for where the voice was coming from. Well, sir, that weren't where I was no more. So just to make a point, I walked up and I give her a good hard shove that sent her sprawling backwards right on that part of her that should have been paddled when she was little. She scrambled up and backed right out the kitchen door, screaming like a banshee, and she ran off out of the lights.
To avenge, not lament. The barrel of an ancient Ticonderoga No. 2 pencil protruded from Stretchy Guy's chest. Billy Finkel grinned, one eye not quite tracking with the other. He'd been having his headaches again, and they made him, in his mother's words, a wicked little cretin. He withdrew the pencil, eager to learn what squishy goo lurked within Stretchy Guy's malleable body. A faint sadness that toys couldn't flinch, couldn't cry out, passed along the surface of his otherwise low-wattage brain. The hole in the action buddy's flesh, Billy dared anyone to call Stretchy Guy a doll. Their asses were grass if they did, he swore. Glowed with a weird dark red light. He put his eye close to the hole, sniffing, dipping his finger in a bit of the leaking entrails. It was like burgundy taffy, translucent. It smelled like plastic when it heated up too much. He considered tasting it, his unkempt pinky finger hovering above the livid wound. Do not imagine that there will be no retribution for this, little Billy. You will pay 1,000-fold for all the harm you have done to my person.
Billy jumped back, shocked. He looked around. The voice had been commanding and deep, like the guy who did the voice on the promos for action movies. He looked down at the chewed-up pencil and the crimson Stretchy Guy guts on its tip. His hand went nerveless and the pencil clattered to the hardwood floor. His tongue was swollen and immobile. With his headache really thumping along, making every heartbeat push little after-images of silver against his vision, he couldn't think of anything to say.
I have seen you, Billy, so filled with cruelty and hatred, broken matchbox cars littering the floor around you, smashed action figures, burned up army men. You abuse your toys, but no more. They can't strike back at you, but I have the power you can scarcely envision in your deepest dreams. Degenerate mouth breather, you shall be made to suffer for every sin.
Stretchy Guy? Billy asked, tentative. Without knowing, the index finger of his right hand burrowed into his nostril. He did, in fact, breathe through his open mouth, tongue hanging stupidly past his crooked teeth.
It is I, worm. Prepare for...
Billy picked up the pencil again. A maniacal light brightened his imbecilic features. He struck, seized by a lunatic vigor. Stretchy Guy's face popped open with the first stab, but he went on and on and on, stabbing straight through the action buddy and into his own flesh. He hardly felt the pain. Billy Finkel massacred Stretchy Guy. When the pencil snapped, he grabbed his juice glass from the table, smashing it, and using the sharpest shard to cut at the toy. In the process, he sliced his hands to the bone. Soon his own blood splashed across the floor, mixing with Stretchy Guy's annihilated remains. "My God," Billy's mother said. He could hear her gasp. The pain suddenly asserted its full power. Seeing his own blood, he gulped. And then he threw up,
adding to the incomprehensible mess before him. Herb! 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 Get the car! His mother screamed. Alice, what in the world's going on in there? Get the car, Herb! Billy's hurt himself. Billy's vision dimmed to a deep gray and finally black. Falling, he didn't feel his head bounce against the hardwood. By the time he awoke, he lay in a hospital bed, his bandaged hands booming with pain. His parents stood outside the door talking to a doctor. He couldn't hear the words, but his mother looked mortified. He'd get a major whooping for this one. He'd already been in hot water with his parents for his little experiment with the WD-40 can in the front room. After this, he'd be lucky to ever get his allowance again. Billy knew that he shouldn't have let Stretchy Guy get him so riled up. It was bad for him to get angry when he was having his headaches. Should have just run you over with a lawnmower, you big jerk face, he whispered. He never got good ideas until he'd already really messed up. And he had pulled a doozy this time. Billy pretended to be asleep when they looked in on him. He was in no mood to hear what his mother had to say just yet. We're going to need to send him to the psychologist this time, Herb, his mom said. She had that squealing sound to her voice that seemed to always come right before he got a spanking. His dad just grunted and blew air through his lips. Meh. The sound of the door closing finally swished, silencing the room, for a while anyway. Billy lay awake, looking at the ceiling, the painkillers losing their strength, his headache coming back, the old acoustic tiles wavering slightly with each heartbeat. The sound of Stretchy Guy's voice echoed in his head. He hadn't understood some of the words, but he grasped that they meant that the action buddy was going to kick his butt real bad. He was all hooked up to medical equipment. He couldn't get away. Trapped and helpless, his pulse raced. That only inflamed the cuts on his hands and sent his headache into turbocharger overload. A few minutes later, a nurse came in and injected something into his IV. Blessed numbness started in his arm, spreading to his face. Billy drooled all over himself. Even his throbbing hands felt far, far away, like they were hooked to the end of someone else's arms. He fell into a drugged stupor, but there was no safety there. He went to where the nightmares could get him. The action buddy waited there, now a human-sized monstrosity of oozing red plastic. Billy ran from him, Stretchy Guy's wrecked face and gashed open body, oozing plastic-smelling junk all the way. Billy ran, and he ran, but he could never get away. The wreck of Stretchy Guy's face groaned like that show he'd seen on camels in the remedial science class at school. That awful camel sound that had caused him to pee the bed that night. The worst sound in the world. When Billy awoke, he felt hollowed out and half alive. Sweat made his limbs slick and chill, Both his legs went into cramps at nearly the same instant. Exhausted, even the pain couldn't wring more than a whimper from his parched throat. He'd wet himself and he didn't even care. Billy looked around, trying to find a glass of water. There was a pitcher, but it sat well out of his reach. When he tried to sit up, his stomach muscles knotted, the pain multiplying. He made a pitiful whistling sound, casting about himself for anything to help. The air, the floor, the nightstand. Oh my God! There, on the nightstand, sat Stretchy Guy. Though Billy had cut him and stabbed him, destroying him like no toy ever, there he sat. Perfect! He even had the leather vest that Billy had lost on the first day he got him. It was Halloween night last fall, his birthday party. He'd eaten too much candy and missed 2 days of school, sick. Stretchy Guy had been his only friend then, the only toy he didn't want to wreck. He'd gotten in trouble for wanting to bring the action buddy to the dinner table. I'm sorry, Stretchy Guy. I don't know why I did it. It's too late for remorse now, Billy. Were I human, perhaps I would feel pity. Perhaps I would be merciful, but I am a toy, and I suffer no such scruples. I am your ruin. Billy forced his cramped, knotted body up, pulling free of his telemetry in the IV. He tumbled off the bed, hitting the ground hard. His head snapped against the hard floor tiles, splitting his skin all the way across his eyebrow. There was lots of blood. It came suddenly, getting into his eye, all over the floor, on the wall too. Billy found he couldn't stop making that noise, even though it scared him. He just had to get away from Stretchy Guy. Rising, he wheeled and staggered, reaching out to brace himself against the window. He felt it give way. The horizon began to tilt. On the floor, he saw a hunk of dislodged silicone cock, so much like Stretchy Guy's innards. Both the window and Billy rocketed into the clear air, given into the hands of gravity. Though well beyond caring at that time, perhaps Billy would have been interested to know how much he resembled all his broken toys, lying there after a 12-story fall.
A lot of people don't believe in Halloween. Those people are wrong. A lot of people do believe in Halloween. They're wrong too. See, the ones who believe believe it is all candy and fun. A night to dress up like a ghost or an action figure if you're a kid. A night to dress up like some oversexed gal or a guy with a midlife crisis if you're all growed. It's a night to party, a night to play, a night to pretend you're scared. Then go home and snuggle up to your lover or to snuggle up to a big pile of candy, depending on your age and personal preferences. That's all wrong. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. As for those who don't even believe in Halloween, I'm gonna rethink my words. Those folk ain't just wrong, they are full tilt stupid. But neither of them, neither the ones who believe nor the ones who don't, neither of them really know. Not like I do. Not like the poor soul what come before me. I growed up in a cabin in the woods. I know. It's a been there, done that stereotype. But it's truth. I growed up without much in the way of money, but with plenty of love. Now the first one was Pa's doing. The second one was Ma's good work. Lord bless her. Pa left for a smoke and a drink when I was 8, and by the time I was 10, I realized he probably wasn't coming back. Still, I got excited every time I heard the door ring. Still do, sometimes. No, that's wrong. I never get excited no more because what if... Wait, stop. Story's running away with me. So there I am in a cabin, middle of nowheres. And nothing to eat a lot of days, but whatever Ma could hunt and skin and stew. Still, we were happy. Never had much in the way of birthdays or presents under no Christmas trees, but we did have a little. And what little we did have were enough. Because it was from Ma. And Ma was a true saint. One of them blessed souls who give all they got, then dig deep and find a little more to pass out. And one thing she always took care to save up for were Halloween. Not much, but she always left a couple of candies in a bucket outside the door, carved her a jack-o'-lantern, put a candle in it, one she made herself, and a sign over them all that said, "Take only one, please share." Mama weren't much of a speller, but she had a big heart. Them things were always out there, always waiting. And never you mind that no one never came to our door. We was too far in the middle of nowhere for any of the city kids to venture out. She'd always put that pumpkin and that candle and that candy with that sign right outside our door. She'd wait for someone to ring the triangle we had hanging out on the porch. Tink-a-link-a-ling. And when it never happened, me and her would split the proceeds at the end of the night. I growed up there. Ma died there. I growed some more, and every Halloween, even when I were 50 and 60 years young, that joke kills me every time, I'd put out the candle and the pumpkin and the candy and the sign. Ma would have wanted it that way. Only thing I ever did hate her for, making me love her so much I put them things out. I wonder, every year when I'm hunched over in the closet, praying for my life, if I hadn't put them things out, if it all wouldn't have happened. But it did. Lordy, yes, it did. I was putting on to bed that night, that Halloween night. Had my pajamas on and were ready to go put out the candle, bring in the pumpkin so as I could eat it later, take down the sign, and eat the candy. The triangle sounded. Tink-a-ling-a-ling. For a second, I plumb forgot what to do, just froze like a fly in honey. Then I went to the door, opened it. A vampire were waiting for me. My first thought was that this kid were too old to be trick-or-treating, and I fixed to lay some godly fear into him. Then I stopped and squinted. There were only the light of the pumpkin candle, but I seen blood before. Skinned too many squirrels not to know it. And that stuff running in rivers down his chin, soaking his white collar till it were red as sunrise. It were real. I thought at first it were a madman come to kill me. Then he smiled. And I could have thunk that those teeth were fakes, but when he smiled, he faded. Didn't disappear, not exactly, but suddenly I could see the lightning bugs in the trees behind him, could see through him the dimmer shadows of those bugs. When he come back to full solid, he were closer to, standing right aside me, smiling that pointy smile, breathing cold breath all over me, cold. And it stunk too, stunk like he'd been eating raw meat and hadn't bothered brushing his teeth none. "Thank you for the treat," he said, and I only then noted he were holding one of the candies I put out, a little miniature chocolate bar. "Do be sure to keep them coming." His voice was slick. Sounded like a TV show I saw once, waiting in the free clinic to have a busted leg looked at. A fine gent from England or somewheres exotic like that. And then he were gone. Not walked away, not run off, just gone. I closed the door, and no sooner did it shut than there came a knock. Not the triangle this time, a full-fisted pounding on the thin wood that was all between me and the night. I opened it. It were the Wolfman. Not like in the movies though. He were something different. Can't explain except to say I had a rabid dog that I had to put down once. The thing were just like that, only standing on hind legs, looking down on me from a bloody muzzle a good 7 feet up. He had a piece of candy too. He growled something, sounded a bit like thanks, and then loped off into the night. I closed the door. The triangle this time. Tink-a-ling-a-ling. I thunk about not answering, Lordy, yes, but then I thunk about how they all said thank ye. And what if I were thought of as rude? Something deep inside me said that'd be a mistake. This time it were a thing that looked already dead. Skin hanging off its ribs, holes where I could see bone and gristle and rotted muscle. The thing had no mouth. Its lower jaw were just gone like something tore him right off. It had a piece of candy. Didn't say nothing, this one, no mouth to speak of. Just nodded and shambled away in the same direction the werewolf done. Another monster, another. Ghoul, ghost, goblin, all of them and more, all holding candy, all saying thanks. At least them what were able to talk. So why are you all afeared? Some of you might say. They didn't do nothing, sounds like a lark. Well, putting aside the blood and bones and mangled flesh, there were the last visit. It were a little boy. Beautiful. Blonde hair, blue eyes. I about fell over myself telling him, come in, ain't safe out there. But the little boy didn't come. And I noted then that there were chains coming from his back. I couldn't see them wrapped around him though, and suddenly like I knew that if I done looked behind him, them chains would have been sprouting right from the skin itself. The chains were some dozen or so in number, and they led back into the dark, but not too far and not far enough, because I could see. I could see what were on them. Each one held a chunk of meat, an arm, a leg, chest, a head. The head were screaming, the quiet scream of the dead, mouth open in this forever O that marked a painful death, and mayhap something even worse after death. I looked at the child's hand, the hand where every ghoul, every goblin had held a bit of chocolate or a piece of caramel. The hand were empty. I looked at the bucket, and it were empty. I looked back at the child. His eyes were dark lines in the night. His mouth just a slit in that beautiful face. He were angry. Then he smiled, and somehow the smile were even worse. No matter, he said, and his voice were as pretty as he were. More so, the sound of everything beautiful and dangerous. He twitched, and the chains jingled. I have my own treats. Then he leaned in close to me, close enough I could feel the cold coming off of him. But I'll be sure to bring you a trick. I didn't think twice. Just swung my door shut in his face, then run to my gun and grabbed it, and then kept on running until I was shut up tight in my closet. Nothing happened. But now I wait. Long years have gone by, and never did the ghosts or ghoulies come back again, but they will. I know they will. I put out more candy than ever. Each year enough to fill the bowl to overflowing. But each year it's still that full at the end. And I bring it in and pack it away until next year. I don't need it no more. That me is gone. I know they're coming. Last year the candy were there, but my sign was torn. Please share, take only one, had been ripped right in half. The halves were nailed to my door. Not with nails though, they were hung there with something small and white, like the bones of a baby. Please share, and under it were written, we will. And under, take only one, in dark letters that curled my soul. We will take our one soon. Happy Halloween.
guys are awesome. That's the best one so far. By a long shot.
Out of how many?
That's the third. They get better and better. Great stories. Wow.
Yeah, that was nice being able to actually hear the opera.
Yeah, that was.